How's everybody doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone. Tonight I have a very special guest joining me, Jess Kamen of the amazing, incredible band 1905. She was also in Fighting Dogs and Alms as well. I think currently she's in Alms, which is really different from 1905, but really, really good too. So we'll be jumping into that and seeing what's going on with that kind of stuff and see what she's been up to. Hope everybody's safe. Hope everybody's doing good. Um, yeah, so I'm going to grab her right now. Jess, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you so much for doing this and taking time out to talk to me.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I really appreciate it. This is number 36 of my discussions, and it's been really, really fun lately. And I used to love 1905 back in the day.
Oh, thanks.
I saw you guys three times, twice in Connecticut and one time in Massachusetts. And
Awesome.
I always loved the Voice CD and everything you guys put out. So it was good to like
Thanks.
find you on Instagram and reach out to you
Yeah, yeah.
and talk to you. So usually when I first start, I just ask how you kind of got into music when you were young, maybe preteen, and then how that turned into maybe like a punk and hardcore or whatever screamo type of thing for you.
Well, huh, long time ago. I guess I don't know, I was classically trained on piano, and so I loved music my whole life, but I didn't really get into anything, I guess, until maybe Nirvana. And then that was when I sort of realized that there was like a world of music that might be cool. I mean, I liked guitar-driven music, but I wasn't really sure where to go from there.
Yeah.
And I guess from there, it just sort of I was lucky enough to grow up in DC where we had Smash, a record store, and I could go in there. And at first, it's just sort of like, buying blind. Like I bought Black Flag because I recognized the logo from somewhere. And then, I was just like a nervous kid that had no idea what I was doing. And I was really intimidated going in there. But of course, like the people that worked there were super cool and really nice. And so, like, I remember uh, I was trying to buy a Minor Threat CD because I recognized the name kind of. And, I was like, nervous going up to buy it, and of course the guy's just really friendly, like, oh well, have you heard this band Fugazi? And from there uh it was a little bit harder to get into punk because we didn't really have, I mean, I'm not that old, we had the internet, but it was like, you know very different than it is today. And so getting into stuff was a lot of just like trial and error, buying stuff and hoping for the best. And um, it also meant getting into stuff like at weird times. So like I think I I think I got Os Rotten and Bad Religion like at the same time. Like it was just I was just so excited and I wanted to get everything. And so and then slowly you start to realize like, oh, shows are a thing and there are people like you that go there. And and punks happen to like wear stuff all over their clothes, so you can like learn about bands from like just being around somebody. Um and then you look at the liner notes, or you look at like if you like mail order something from distro, they'll send you like other stuff. And it was sort of like a quest, a journey of some kind. But it also meant getting into a lot of like different kinds of punk and hardcore. And then that leading to Bolt Thrower, which catapulted me into metal. And then that goes zigzagging back to Neurosis. And then I don't know, discovering Japanese hardcore. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, have you always were you born and raised in and around Washington D.C. or
Hmm.
were you born somewhere else and then you went there?
Born and raised.
Born and raised in Washington
Hmm.
D.C. And I mean, D.C. was a huge hardcore you know place back in the day too, with Minor Threat and Bad Brain starting there and kind of
Hmm.
going to New York and stuff like that. But they've always had like even Baltimore, which is really closest, has been like a big hardcore like
Hmm.
scene.
That's where I live now.
Oh, Baltimore now, nice,
Hmm.
nice. So yeah, I obviously Minor Threat's probably the greatest band that ever came out of DC. And I was a huge
Probably
fan too.
true.
I was caught up in Minor Threat right like when I was real young. And
Hmm.
although I'm a Boston guy, so SSD was kind of, I mean,
Right, right.
they were they're a little more favorite for me just because of the area. But
Hmm.
so when you were you playing piano this whole time, like getting into that stuff too, or were you kind of just like when did you figure out that like playing piano or you wanted to be a vocalist too? Because 1905 you were kind of like, you know, in the front and screaming and singing. Was that nervous and is that something you always wanted to do?
I mean, it was kind of a fluke. I wasn't really playing piano anymore. I wanted to play guitar, but I like wasn't really dedicated enough to it to get like good at it. I dabbled or whatever. I wasn't really desperate to be in a band. It happened sort of like I knew Nick who played guitar and Marshall drummer from like around, not that well, sort of like in the activist scene, maybe like Food Not Bombs and punk and whatever else. But um, it was sort of like a random, we were talking about music and then somehow it came up that I should go hang out and like play with them or whatever. And I kind of didn't even think they were serious at the time. I mean, I was 16. They were a few years older. I was just like that, you know, this is super cool, but you know, I'm not going to take it seriously. And then next thing you know, I'm like at practice and I had never really sung before into a microphone. Definitely never screamed before. And I can't say that like the first practice was I didn't like dazzle anybody. I was really nervous. I was faking it till I made it. I was trying to be cool. Um, and I guess they must have seen something in me that I didn't yet because suddenly they're talking about next practice as if like, you know, it's a given. And I'm like, they're looking at me. I don't know. I guess I'm in a band now, maybe. The first song that we played was Voice. And the screaming part didn't happen. Had never screamed before either, and I kind of just declared like maybe I'll try screaming, and they're like yeah I don't know, give it a shot. And I was really nervous about that too. I'd never really been that loud before. I didn't know if I could do it, and I like the first time doing it was like this exhilarating sort of cathartic moment of like whoa, that came out of me, like that's crazy. And from there it just sort of became a weird hybrid of the two, I guess. But I was not a natural front person in any way.
Now, was it structured beforehand? Were they like, all right, this is the kind of music we want to do, and we were they kind of like goading you to scream, or was it kind of just going to be a singing band, or like how
Yeah.
was it kind of structured in the beginning?
In the beginning, it was more singing, but it was sort of like we were figuring it out as we went.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I feel like even the first day, it sounds kind of corny, but I just felt like there was, I mean, like Nick and Marshall had been playing for a while, and it just felt like I knew it was special somehow. Like I'd never heard anything like it, and it was weird, but it was like, but I just really liked it. And I feel like Nick is kind of he's like just a truly gifted songwriter. And even then, you know, he was like 18 or 19. I mean, sounds cheesy, but like I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he's kind of like a creative genius. Like he's just there's something very unique about him and his songwriting. And he was like willing to take risks and to be different and to draw on like punk and other stuff like that, but to also like do his own thing. And then or like you know, march to the beat of his own drummer, figuratively, but then literally he had Marshall, who also happened to be like uniquely talented and you know like a technically skilled drummer, but also creative with what he did. And they had this like cool musical bond that like I don't know, I had kind of like the musical equivalent of finishing each other's sentences. I don't know, it just felt like kind of magical that day to watch. And I just at the time I was like I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. These people like know what they're doing, I don't know what I'm doing, but somehow it all worked out. And then at the time we had our friend Chris playing bass, but only for like the first couple shows. And then we got Brian, and he added like a whole other element to it that I guess you know, he's a great bass player, but he's also I guess I would say there are two things that were very important. One was a sense of humor that kept the rest of us kind of in check when we took ourselves too seriously, and also the ability to network. And like I mean, we would, you know, he booked our tours and stuff, like we had no idea how to do that. And
Yeah.
he like kind of was more plugged into things, like so that we weren't just in the practice space forever, never leaving the apartment
Yeah.
building basement.
What was he the merch guy too? Was he the one that kind of set the merch up, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, I guess that was, I mean, we took turns later, but he was more like just naturally good at figuring that stuff out. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought that, you know, you just, I mean, I was just happy staying in the practice space forever since I was also really nervous about being on stage. I mean, fortunately, it was like the early 2000s where like you could turn your back to the crowd and that was acceptable for some time. But I mean, I got better and more confident over time, but it was nerve wracking. I was, you know, shaking because I was just like adrenaline and fear. Yeah, not a natural performer exactly, but as I got more used to it, I came to enjoy it more. But I mean, I just thought that if you played a lot and you got good enough that like the universe might magically hand you stuff like a recording studio time and a tour or something. I don't know. I don't even know what I thought, but well, actually, when it came to recording, we kind of did have the universe hand us like a magical. Well, I mean, our friend Angel out of nowhere, who's from Baltimore and played in some bands up here, just sort of randomly decided to loan us $500 to record because
Really?
he thought we should. And then Marcus, who did sound around DC at different shows like the Wilson Center, took a liking to us and had like a home studio and offered to just, you know, take the $500 and pretty much give us like unlimited time to, because we were both figuring it out. And so I guess in that way it was sort of a weird everything coming together moment. But otherwise, as I learned, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Now, was that the 4-song CDR demo that you guys, is that where you were talking about recording? That's not the voice.
No, it's the whole the album.
Mm-hmm. But didn't you guys did the demo first, right? That was the first thing. And
yeah.
Was it 2000 that you guys got together, or was it a little bit after 2000?
Yeah, that's a good question. I
know it's
really,
been so long.
My memories like are just my memory is just terrible in general, but everything merges together in these weird like snippets, like a Picasso painting of time or something. I don't know. Yeah. But I guess we didn't play our first show for a really long time, and I guess our first show must have been at the end of 2001. I want to say.
Yeah, because I think that the demo came out in 2002, and then Voice came out in 2003, I think. And then
sure, if you say so.
Well, if I can remember correctly, and then the Amanda Woodward split was the next year, 2004. But I was reading online that it said you guys were together from till 2006. But there was, if that was the case, which I don't know, you can confirm this or not. You guys didn't put out any music for 2 years if you were together for the next 2 years.
Yeah, we kind of, I mean, I love those guys, but, you know, we were just kind of falling apart and our lives were changing and we were just, I mean, we were still together. We were still writing and playing. And it's actually really sad that we broke up the way, you know, without kind of finishing it, because there are a few songs that we wrote that I like were some of my favorites that I was really excited to record that we never got around to. It wasn't like anybody hated anybody. It was just like we just fell apart and sort of splintered. You know, young, it was almost like, you know, fighting like siblings or something. I don't know. It kind of got to a point where it didn't feel the same or fun anymore. And so we just sort of went our separate ways. But I think in hindsight, you know, we probably would have all liked to have done it a little bit differently, and especially recorded some of the music that we wrote. But
yeah, that's it's very similar to my background. I was in a small screamo band called High School Sweethearts, and kind of a similar thing. We were together for, you know, a few years, and the last few songs that we had written were like our strongest songs by far. And just like you said, kind of like siblings, kind of squabbling a little, and it was almost to me it almost felt like a job to go to practice and stuff like that. It wasn't as fun as it was. I'm not saying this is, you know, for me.
Of course, yeah.
And it just kind of fizzled out. But I wish that we had recorded those last 3 songs, because that by far it was the strongest stuff we had ever written. And it's just a shame that sometimes that happens. I was actually going to ask you if there was any hidden songs that you guys had that didn't get put out there. Which,
man, I wish. I really like those songs.
I know when I heard you guys broke up, I was so bummed out, because like Voice is so strong, and I always wanted more, you know what I mean? I was like always online looking for, you know, more songs and stuff like that. So I was kind of bummed out when you guys broke up.
Oh. Well, thank you. I mean, thanks for the interest. Sorry that we kind of couldn't deliver, but Yeah, I mean, I think, those songs are out there as far as like really badly recorded YouTube videos, probably. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, it's a shame. I really would have liked to have put those out before we broke up. We didn't even get a last show because we were supposed to play in Philly at Pointless Fest, and then like I can't even actually remember exactly what happened, but cops were involved and things got shut down, and then we didn't get to play, and that was just like such a sad end to like
Yeah.
such an important thing to all of us, but so it goes.
Yeah, and you guys toured quite a bit when you were in that band. Did you tour with anybody in that time that 1905 was like? Did you have a sister band that you went on tour with during the time in 1905?
At that time, no, not exactly. Uh,
Or maybe a band that you always played with, like just they kind of tripped onto like while you were going on tour and they were going on tour. Like, was there any bands
I
that
mean,
you?
there are different tours where we kind of, stumble along with other bands and stuff. I think in the first one we played a bunch of shows with the Assistant, who I really I was already like a big fan of theirs, so like that was just really exciting to be able to tour with them, like my first tour, and there they are. um, and sometimes you pick up bands along the way because you just happen to have booked shows in the same month, and so that's how we became friends with this band Peralta from Illinois, and then we got to play a bunch of shows with Submission Hold, who I also really like admired and liked a lot, from Canada, and Heresicon from New York, who were pretty exciting. I really liked them a lot too, and it was cool to like be. It was cool that I kept finding other bands with women in them because that was like not that common. And so when I did find them, and we'd click so well that it was just like a really exciting time. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I with you guys were so unique too, just because you were doing a different sound back then. Not different sound, like it was familiar with other kinds of bands like that, but you guys were doing like light instrumentals with soft singing and then really screaming and then like a little ditty like throw would be thrown into a voice, you know what I mean? It was very, very different and very refreshing at the time because all the bands, like, I'm not saying sounded the same, but were similar in ways. But you guys were really, really different, but fit well into that scene. And since you mentioned the Assistant, it was literally like the Assistant in 1905 were, and Welcome to Plague Year, but that might have been a little bit further, back. Really were basically the female fronted bands back then. There wasn't a lot of them, and it was refreshing to see it. And speaking of that, nowadays there's a lot more women in bands
That's awesome.
in the scene, which I think is amazing. I think it should be flooded. I love it. I love the sound, and I'm always listening for new bands like that because I think it's really, really good for the scene, and I love it personally.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Have
really
you
cool to see it happening more and
have
more.
you heard any of the newer bands that you know are heavy nowadays?
I mean, I hear a lot of bands that are heavy. What do you mean, like?
Like in the like I hate the word screamo, but in the screamo vein of things, I'm old, so screamo kind of hurts to say.
It means different things to different people.
Yeah, I mean scrams is even worse for me. So like,
My friends are in this band called No Man from Virginia, and they're
no
really
man,
awesome.
yes, no man.
Because they were in a band called Majority Rule, but now it's like members of with my friend Mahe, who just crushes it, and I feel like that's really exciting right now. Um, I don't know. There's a ton of stuff out there right now,
Yeah.
that I'll think of later after this is over that I will have said. But
Yeah, have you ever heard of the band Foxtails?
uh,
From Connecticut. They're really, really good. Or
oh, cool.
Diana Kralls is really, really good too. I'll send you those links. Great new bands doing really great things.
Awesome.
Which, I mean, I feel like the scene back then was so good when 1905 was going on, and now I think it got a little stale in between, and then the last 4 or 5 years it's gotten really like back to where it was back then. The communities are like really tight. I think everything's like really, really positive now, and me being an old guy, I mean, I'm bridging on 50 years old, so I've been around for a long, long time, but I'm still in the scene, and I still love
That's
like
awesome.
listening to it. So I'll send you some links though.
Cool. Yeah. I'll check it out.
So after 1905, you got into Fighting Dogs. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct? I only heard the Exonerated single that you were on. You weren't on that album, just that song, correct? And then the next thing that got put out, you were on that full CD, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they already had an album when I joined, and that was a lot of fun. I really loved playing with them, and I kind of I mean, I played guitar sort of, but not that well. So I kind of like got better at it while being in that band, um, and that was really fun to do too. It was like a different thing, um, a different style. It was like all screaming, no singing, and but that was kind of fun too. And that was another band where we kind of had to break up before we got to like release some more music that we wanted to, but it was a really great time. And yeah.
Now that band's from Philadelphia, correct?
Yeah.
So did you have to move, or were you just kind of commuting to like go to practice, or how did that work for you?
At that time, I was in Baltimore commuting to DC and Philly for both bands for a short time. And in Fighting Dogs, I was actually in a relationship with John, the other guitar player. So I was kind of there a lot anyway. So it was like a combination of things there. But then I did eventually move to Philly, but not until after Fighting Dogs had already broken up. So that was a bummer.
That reminds me of Fighting Dogs in 1905. I have a flyer here from Connecticut that has
Nice.
1905 and Fighting Dogs on it.
Before I was in the band.
But you don't remember the show, do you? It was in Connecticut.
No, I think I do actually remember that show. What month was it?
It was. I don't think it says. Oh, June 28th.
I think, yeah, I kind of remember that show.
It was in
Manchester.
Manchester.
We were on tour at the time.
Manchester, Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
And do you remember Friendly Fest? I posted a couple videos that I recorded from Friendly Fest.
Yeah, I was like, where did these videos come from? I'd never seen them before. That was awesome. Yeah.
Brian from They and the Children did those fests. He did, I think, 4 of them, which were really, really great. And I don't know if that was the first time I saw you guys, or you did Record Hospital Fest in Cambridge, Mass. You played with like Off Minor and I can't think of that. Wolves might have played that night. Transistor.
It's ringing a distant bell.
Yeah, that was the other. That's like the darker video that I posted a couple of videos.
Yeah, okay.
The show that I saw from this flyer, I didn't record. I tried to record everything that I went to, but sometimes I just wanted to chill and actually enjoy the music and not have to stand like a statue like this.
It's funny because things are so different now since everybody wants to record like literally everything that happens in their lives. And back then there were only a handful of dedicated people like you that were willing to put in the work with an actual like video camera and stand still and not watch so you could record it for everybody else. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I did it was in the late '80s, and I had a camcorder like this big. I had to hold it like this. You literally put a VHS in the thing. It was gigantic. Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing that, putting in that physical labor and all that.
Well, I was speaking with Matt Gordon last week from Helen of Troy, and I was telling him that nowadays, because I saw Jerome Stream in their last tour when they got back together again, and I kind of feel like an asshole with my iPhone out. You know what I mean? Even though I'm kind of I document this, and I've been doing it for years and years and years, and I've been in bands and played with bands before, but I feel like an asshole nowadays because it's such a different thing. I don't want to be the asshole with the phone. Like, I try to hide on the side so I'm not in front of anybody and nobody's looking through my phone to watch the show,
I mean, I know what you mean, but at the same time, I think you shouldn't feel like an asshole, although I understand why you might. I've also been the asshole that wants to record something and you're just like, listen, I really want to record this. I don't give a fuck. I'm doing it. And, just
I know
live your life.
I can't really give them my background. Listen, I've been doing this for years. They're just like, who's this jerk in front of me right now? Like, and also
hand out a disclaimer, pre-printed.
Yeah, I know, seriously. One thing I found out, which was I was amazed at was I didn't know you were on the, an Off Minor song on
Mhm.
the Some Blood album. I just found that out. Like I've heard that song a million times, and I never knew it was you. And I was like pleasantly surprised.
Until you just said that, I completely forgotten the whole thing happened too. So
how did that work out that you got on that album?
being friends and being in Philly, and I don't know. I think it was one of those random like want to do this thing, come over 5 blocks away, and sure, okay, I'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, I love that song too, but I was blown away by finding that out. I was like, no way, I can't believe that, which is so great. Um, Also, I was reading something that you were on in like a solo project. In I think it was, I forget what it was on. It might have been on like Last FM's write up on 1905 that said you had a solo project called Non Grata. Was it called?
Wow, that it wasn't really a. I mean, I barely did anything with it, or at least it was very solo. As in, I recorded 2 songs and everything else like never saw the light of day. But I didn't even think anybody really paid that much attention. But yeah, I guess I I briefly thought I might put more stuff out there, but I mean, I still write tons of music. I just like don't always feel the need to record it and like release it.
Yeah.
Um,
And what was the style? Was it keyboards and singing, or like
mhm.
that's what it was?
Sort of sad songs on piano, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it also said you played one at least one show. It was like such a weird write up. It was like solo project
Who knows this about me? No.
I know. I was like so weird. I read it. I'm like, what?
I mean, wow. I just yeah. I don't know how that would have gotten out into the internet, but I guess I played like but it wasn't even a show. It was like an open mic style kind of thing. I used to work at a club called the Auto Bar, and we had like an open mic thing, and I was just like, well, maybe I'll just play a couple songs at this thing, and that was it. I mean,
Yeah.
to call it a solo project would be a bit of a stretch, I think, but
Okay, I had to ask because I was so curious. I was just like, I never heard.
it was more just like, oh, I have songs that you need to get out somewhere, and I'll just throw it into this thing. But yeah.
That's cool. Going back to 1905, were you? It was sort of a political style band, you know, lyrically wise. Was that something that you were involved in back then that you were passionate about? Would like throw with the lyrics too, like turn your tanks around, use the metal to build a playground. Like I love those lyrics. Like there was just so many catchy things on that album that drew to me. What was your take on on singing about political things and important things like that?
I mean, yeah, it was super important to all of us, uh, to varying degrees, but I mean, still very important. And I mean, it was one of the things I liked about punk is that not just that the music was there, but that it had substance behind it.
Mm.
And I guess, you know, it's not that I felt like every single song had to be political. And of course, I thought that like, you know, the personal can be political and that kind of thing. It didn't have to be, you know, overt or like discharge or something. But I thought, you know, at least for that band, it was really important and almost hard to let go of, you know, because in my current band, we're not at all that way and it's not even punk. But even being okay with that because it was just such an adjustment. I mean, I still believe all of those things and find them all to be really important. I just, you know, maybe don't sing about them anymore. But I think, you know, I think punk is great like that. I think having politics in punk is important and perhaps overdone, but you know, if you can find new and creative ways to do that, I think you should.
I know in current times, like it goes with current times as well, even more so now than not to say back then wasn't, you know, things to talk about, but now it's I mean, out of control. And I'm surprised I don't see more political views in punk and screamo and hardcore like you did back then, because it seemed like a little bit that subject was more back then than it is really on the forefront right now. If you can agree with that, I don't know if that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I feel like I'm not really sure where punk is at right now, and the fact that like we're in a pandemic makes it even harder for me to like sort of gauge where we're at. But I think, you know, maybe we're all a little, Trump maybe beat us all down a little bit. Or at some point you're like, well, what else is there to say about certain things? And then on the other hand, you're like, it's never been more important to say these things. So I feel like I should be listening to more new stuff. And I admit that I like, I do, but not as much. So I don't feel as plugged in right now currently, but I'm not completely out either. So there's that.
Yeah. Speaking of your new band, Alms, how did that get together? And it's very different sounding. Like if anybody hasn't heard it, that's heard Fighting Dogs in 1905, which Fighting Dogs was like really a metally hardcore influence band, which I liked too. But I couldn't find the CD. I've only heard the Exonerated song, and I haven't heard the stuff that you were fully on. I couldn't find it anywhere.
It's really hard to find, especially if you're going to type Fighting Dogs into the internet search, because you're not going to probably find what you want to. So, yeah, I remember Todd, our drummer, had at some point uploaded them somewhere, but I can find them for you if you want them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if it was on Bandcamp or Spotify or somewhere like that where I could actually hear it.
Yeah, I have no idea actually where you can hear it, but I'll find a way to make sure that you do.
Going back to Alms, like how did you get with that band? And it's very different sounding. I like it. I know the write-up was kind of like says old 70s style Scorpions with heavy organ influenced, maybe like a darker Deep Purple type of organ type of
I like that description, sure. I'll take it. Compare me to Deep Purple again. No. I mean, I feel like I've always had like a love for like heavy 70s rock and like some stoner doom stuff that was sort of parallel with punk and other stuff that I guess I just sort of took the opportunity to sort of explore that side of things. I feel like I approach everything from like a place of punk still. Like I just, I'm a punk that likes metal, not necessarily a metalhead, or like I'm a punk that does these things, and that's like sort of ingrained in my brain somehow. But yeah, Alms is really different, but I really like it, and I play keyboard in it, so that it's my more like natural instrument, I guess, for me. And I've just known those guys for forever, and they used to play in punk bands back in the day too. And I think it was just they had been playing music together for a long time and wanted somebody to play keyboard, and I just sort of stumbled into that too. But we've been friends for like many, many years. So.
And you do vocals as well, a little bit, band as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I listened to the whole album a couple times, and I like it. And I think the crossover, you guys could really play with anybody by the sounds of it. You know what I mean? I think like if you were in a straight up hardcore show or a screamo show or even just like a rock indie type show, you guys fit well with like everything. You know what I mean?
Thanks. Yeah. I like that too because like a lot in the way that I really love doing 1905. I like that we also aren't sort of stuck in any particular genre or thing, that we're allowed to sort of explore things creatively and do things musically and not feel restrained by a genre or like a scene or anything like that, it just opens up a lot of possibilities that make it, exciting to go to practice and see what comes out. But
and Act 1 is that the only thing that's put out right now?
Yeah, we're working on Act 2. I don't know if that's what it's going to be. We're working on the next one right now. And we're excited about it, but still a little ways off now, I guess. We kind of got set back this year like everyone else, so.
Yeah. Now, are you missing shows just like everybody else is? Is it eating away at you that like, you can't, at least maybe not you play shows, which I'm sure you're dying to do too, but just go out to see a show? Have you been really...
It's funny because right when it hit, I was really burned out on that, and I was just like, I don't feel like going to shows right now. Like I need, it comes in waves. Like sometimes you just need a break from all of that. And then of course, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder, I guess, because like 2 months into it, it's just like, I really miss live music and I can't wait to play again. And it just becomes this like, I didn't know how good I had it back then, But yeah, now I'm definitely missing it a lot.
Yeah. I was like, I went to hardcore shows when my first hardcore show was in 1983, if you can believe that. That's how old I am, 1983. And then I've been going to shows, for the longest time for heavy music, hardcore punk, screamo and stuff like that. And then around 2006, 2007, I kind of got like you said, kind of, I was like, not that it was stale, but it was kind of like, oh, I've been to like a billion shows. I've played shows and bands and stuff like that. And I kind of, it just got stale for me. So I've always loved hip hop since like 1986, 87. So all of a sudden I started just going to solely hip hop shows and started recording hip hop shows
Oh,
and
cool.
stuff like that. And then in the past 5 years, I had just missed heavy music so much. And it was funny because I saw Sheer Terror from New York City,
Yeah.
probably like 4 or 5 years ago. My buddy, I was downstairs at a club and I was watching Slain, a hip hop artist, and Sheer Terror was playing upstairs. And I knew the manager of the club, and he's like, "Oh, Sheer Terror's playing upstairs." I was like, "No way!" I was like, "Can you get me up there?" And he's like, "Yeah, like I'll bring you up there." So I watched that set, and just watching that set alone made me want to go to heavy shows again. And then I started going to heavy shows, and then I got immersed back into the scene and started talking to people and doing all kinds of stuff because I missed it so much. And that's just like my background of how it was. But it was stale for me for a while, so I can totally understand that you were like, oh, I've been to a million shows. Like I kind of, like I need a break from it.
Yeah, I think, it's for everybody, everything can get a little stale from time to time, that in some ways is cool because then it makes you discover other things or rediscover other things. And I think, burnout's real and it's good to take breaks sometimes. And then when you come back in, you can appreciate it again. I mean, the same thing even with, activism, where like it's easy to get burned out when you're trying to like fight a almost, unstoppable power or whatever. And there's infighting and you feel like there's a lot of bullshit, and sometimes you just take a step back and then you can get back in and get back to work. And with music, there's no shortage of stuff to get into, and that sometimes taking a break and then finding something new and then coming back with a different perspective is cool. So
yeah, definitely. Now speaking of screamo, like I was back then, what was screamo to you when you first heard it? Because I know 1905 is pushed into that genre a little bit. When you first heard the word, was it always already a word to you, or was it kind of new to you? Because
it was pretty new.
I talked to my buddy Ron, and it was always been hardcore. It might be chaotic, emotional hardcore, but it was never screamo. And then, like, it's almost impossible not to say like, "Oh, Orchid's a screamo band," or Reversal Man is a screamo band. So, what did it kind of mean to you when you first heard it, and like, what does it mean to you now, I guess?
I mean, I knew Screamo. I mean, I had a weirder view where like I'd heard Orchid, I knew who they were, and I didn't feel like I was like that. I mean, I didn't hate them or anything like that, but it was just different. I think, for a while, even though I knew that we were different, anytime somebody would describe us as that, it would be like, what do you mean we're punk? And then to them, it's like, what do you mean you're not punk? Like, what is this? I think I think I understood it or was more okay with it. I think my bandmates were like, what do you mean we're a hardcore band? I don't understand. Like, what's screamo? Like, and because it was still like, it meant 18 different things at the time, you didn't really know if it was like a good thing or not. You just like, at a certain point, it just doesn't really matter. Like, call us whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was I still don't really know what would qualify as like what official screamo is.
Yeah.
I never really felt like it fit us, but it was used a lot to describe us. So maybe I'm wrong and they're right. I don't know.
Yeah, because if you look up like top screamo bands, you'll see you guys. You'll see, like I said,
really
Orchid, like City of Caterpillar, Page 99, like
and all of those bands that you just said sound so drastically different from one another that like that doesn't even make sense either. So.
That's why I always just say punk and hardcore, especially me being an old schooler. I always ask, and it's fun to ask the younger people that I talk to, because it's it gives me a different perspective because I'm older and they're young and very, very positive about the scene and stuff like that. So it's fun to see what they have to say about it as well. And
yeah, for sure.
I always ask, when was the first time you heard Scrams, and did you even know what it was? Because I had no idea what it was. Somebody was like, oh, the Scrams band this, and I'm like, Scrams? I'm like,
I currently have no idea what you're saying to me right now. What?
Yeah, so Scrams now is the screamo of back then, I
Whoa.
guess.
All right.
That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
now
I've
you're
never,
seeing my reaction in real time because I've never heard that before in my entire
yeah,
life.
Google Scrams, and it's Skramz, and you'll
No, really? God. All right. All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
I'll
that's what
reserve judgment. I'll Google it.
yeah, that's it. It's been around for I mean, I think close to 10 years now, or at least that. Yeah, I didn't know what it was either. Believe me, it was it was all over my head. Well, usually before I stop talking to the people that I talk to, I always throw like a rapid fire question at everybody that I
Okay.
talk to. So it's nothing crazy, but favorite New England punk or hardcore band? New England meaning like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire.
Oh God. I don't know.
I mean, the Converge, Cave-Ins in there.
I like Converge. They were
Daugh-
cool.
Daughters. I mean, even going back further, Slapshot, SSD.
Slapshot was cool. I don't know. I wasn't as like super into that stuff. I mean, I liked in that genre. I liked Integrity a lot, and I liked. Um, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as familiar, I guess,
Yeah, yeah.
as I should have been. Don't hate me. Sorry.
That's all right. Number two, what was the first punk hardcore show you attended?
Yeah, I've actually tried to answer that before, and I can't even remember exactly which one was first, but I'm pretty sure it was like probably some sort of random street punk show, maybe. Um, and I remember like my first Wilson Center show, but I don't really remember who played it anymore. I have a really bad memory, so like I said, things blend together. But I think one of my earlier shows was like the Casualties or something. But yeah, I guess it didn't make as big of an impact since I don't really remember it. But
But when you finally did,
oh, I remember like one of my very first ones that I went to without having ever heard the band was Swingin' Utters. Played a
oh
show.
really? Oh no kidding.
It was really random, but it was just like, oh, punks, like that means that like shows are a thing, and like there's one tomorrow, I'll go. That's how that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, did that hook you right away, or did it take a few shows to like where you were like, all right, this is my scene, like?
Oh, it definitely took a few shows. I mean, I was intrigued, and I was like, what is this like whole
Yeah.
world that this is insane. But I was also like, I just didn't really feel like I fit in or clicked or anything for a while. So it was, it was exciting, but it took a while to actually feel like mine, I guess.
Yeah. Now, did you go to like metalcore shows back in the day too, where there was like heavy moshing and kind of like a lot of testosterone flying around and stuff like that?
Oh
And,
yeah.
and if you did, do you remember any of the like more metalcore shows that you went to?
I remember one very dramatic Earth Crisis show where people were like, there was like a fight because people were throwing like meat at them for some reason, I guess to like make fun of them for being vegan. But at the time I like didn't really know enough about the beef, no pun intended, to really understand like what the hell is going on. But that was definitely memorable because I couldn't figure out what anybody was doing or why, and that like everyone's fighting, and the whole thing was just get the popcorn out and like watch it from
Yeah,
the corner.
it's honestly it's very similar to when I saw Earth Crisis up in Manchester, New Hampshire. A band called Distrust played before them, and the lead singer wore a meat apron with blood all over it, and
Wow.
he had a raw piece of meat or whatever. And then when Earth Crisis played, somebody threw like some sort of meat, and then there was like a gang that was there, and then all hell broke loose, and the cops came, and a bunch of people got beat up.
Wow, I did not think that was like a common thing that happened to them. It did not
Yeah.
feel like that should be a thing that repeatedly happens in different cities, but I guess it does. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Now, was that in Washington D.C. that had happened, or was
Yeah,
it?
I think that was at the like a lot of the like more hardcore shows happened at this church. I guess it was called St. Andrew's Church that was in Maryland, so like right near DC. But yeah, it was definitely at that place.
That's crazy. I can't believe that it's happened so many times. I thought like, oh, this is probably like a few times, but now that you say that, it's probably happened in every city.
Yeah, I mean if that's true, like poor guys, I don't know. That really sucks.
Now, were you an Earth Crisis fan back in the day, or?
I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciated some Earth Crisis songs. Yeah, sure. I mean, I like that stuff. It was just like not enough that I could, quote you full album, you know, or like lyrics or anything, except for that one song, shit, Fire something.
Oh, Firestorm.
That's the one. That song's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I really, you know, I liked stuff, but I didn't get like super into everything. I was too excited about other stuff that I like couldn't commit to any
Yeah, yeah.
one genre to like get into, I guess.
It's funny, Firestone. We, my old band, High School Sweethearts, used to play that at the very end of our set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really fun, actually. I'd love to cover that
Although
song.
we weren't a metalcore band, we were more of a screamo band, I guess. But we always played that at the end and tried to get crazy or whatever.
I would have moshed if I had been there, so.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
My next question: all-time favorite punk hardcore show you played, or it could be a couple because I mean.
Man, we played so many really good shows.
I mean, you could give me 2, 3.
I mean, pretty much every time, every Pointless Fest was like incredible. Remember playing with Disc. A lot of the shows in Philly at that church were like always really good and like really fun. Like we got to play with really different types of bands, like Dysphere and, but then also Submission Hold and like all different stuff in between. I don't know. I mean, that's like I want to tell you about like 900 different shows. I can't narrow it down. I can't.
Yeah. What about like the you guys made it to the West Coast? How were the shows out there?
Oh, those were awesome too. Like From Ashes Rise, any show with those guys was amazing. I loved Tragedy, so getting to play. I mean, they're friends too, but like that's the cool thing about punk is that like your favorite bands can also be like your buddies, and that's not weird or strange. No, I mean we played some amazing shows. Like we were really lucky, and like from all from various genres of music. So like, which is cool since I had kind of diverse tastes and like somehow got to play with all of them. So
Yeah. Now, did Fighting Dogs play a lot of shows when you were in Fighting Dogs?
we did. Um, if you're gonna ask me to like remember a lot of them, I'm probably not going to.
Okay, can you remember your favorite show from Fighting Dogs
Shit.
that you played?
God, I don't know. I really should know. It really sucks to not be able to like remember specific things like this, which is why I was like, maybe you should talk to one of my bandmates for this interview because like literally any of them would remember things very specifically, especially Brian. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question very well. I'm really sorry.
I know when I was first talking to you, also, Instagram would only let me and you be talking. Now, like after I got a hold of you, all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, you can talk to 4 people now." So I should have just been like, "Hey, we could throw Nick or Marshall or Brian on here too as well," because I'm gonna try to do that for the first time, maybe a couple weeks. It should be interesting because hopefully I'm not talking over like 2 or 3.
I'm sure that after this is over, if they watch it, they're gonna be like, none of that is how that happened at all, or like, what show are you even talking about? Like, I don't know. This is how my brain remembers it. Brian's got the best memory of all of us, so if you need to have specifics, hit him up.
I wish more people documented stuff like that too. I'm sure you wish that too, just for the memory alone. And nowadays things are just popping up out of the blue because people are finally, transferring 8mm cassettes and VHS cassettes and stuff like that. And I know Pete from Sinaloa, he has a tin can full of Dreams Fest IG now, and he's finally putting up videos from back then, which I think started in '98. And it's good that he just put a Frodis video up.
Nice.
that blew me away. I was like, oh my God. And so he's like slowly putting stuff like that on his page, which I haven't seen any of that footage. I mean, it has super old piebald video.
Oh, cool.
Really, really young stuff like that. So I wish people that had cameras, because like you said, you saw cameras here and there at every show, but where's the footage? Like,
right.
That's why I try to put as much as
no, that's awesome.
As I have out on the internet, so people can see and remember and be like, hey, I was in the crowd, or hey, that's me playing bass, or you know what I mean. I just wish more people found those tapes. Now,
well, speaking of Frodis, I was briefly going to play in a band called Zealot R.I.P. They're still a band. I'm just they have a different singer. That's actually Blake, who is in Pig Destroyer, but that's like one of their new projects, and it's pretty cool. So something for you to check out and for me to plug on this video.
What are they called again?
It's Zealot, like the
Yes.
Zealot, and then
Yes.
I guess because maybe that name was taken, they added RIP to the end
Oh,
in true
nice.
hardcore fashion. So
Now, is that on like a streaming site that somebody can find? Because I've never heard it, and I'd love to hear it. Is that on
I'm not sure
Bandcamp?
exactly where it is, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it. They're pretty internet savvy people,
Yeah,
more so than I am for sure.
that's good. All right, my next question. All-time favorite punk hardcore show you attended, like watched, and were kind of blown away with whoever you saw. You know, was that night where you were like, "Oh my God, this was great to see."
Man, these questions are giving me like a panic attack. I don't. How am I supposed to narrow that down? I've seen some like hundreds and hundreds of amazing shows, and
I mean, you could give me a couple that just kind of meant something to you. You know?
yeah, no. Um, Honestly, it's kind of random, but like I still remember earlier on, like one of the shows that meant the most to me was actually Del Cielo, and Katie, who was the drummer, put out a record. But it was such an important moment for me because for a lot of reasons. She kind of was like, even though not that much older than me, she was like a mentor, kind of. She's just this like, badass feminist drummer that like was awesome to watch, but also just like totally herself at all times and like emotional when she felt like being emotional, which was often just like pure joy and just crying because she was like, really into whatever was happening. Um, but I still remember just like watching her play and like seeing her and that joy in her face, like really early on before we really talked and stuff, and being like, I just never seen anything like it before. I never actually probably seen a woman playing drums in a band before. And there's something about the whole, like seeing them play that it's a little thing sometimes that you remember that like I didn't even think of
Yeah,
until this moment that like really have an impact on your life and you don't even realize it.
yeah, that definitely makes sense. I saw them actually with Books Lie and Yaphet Kotto up in Medford, Massachusetts, up here, and it was a really, really great show. They were always fun to watch live, and I enjoyed them. Like I think I saw them twice, but I do remember that show specifically in Medford, Mass, with Yaphet Kotto and Books Lie.
Yeah, sometimes it's like I'll be blown away. I mean, there are other shows that really blew me away. Like I saw Neurosis, and like anytime they play anything, is like they're gonna blow you away. A lot of times, just random stuff will catch you off guard, or like stuff that I hadn't been exposed to before that like I guess in hindsight have more meaning or whatever. But it's all a little jumbled at this moment because I'm not very good on camera, so
Yeah.
it's.
Well, I mean, I'm super old, so I forget everything. I was talking to somebody. I always tell this story. Somebody was like, "Oh, you remember we saw Garrison in Mid Carson July?" And I was like, "I never saw Mid Carson July." He was like in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I was like, "I didn't go to that show." And then he sends me a picture of me and him in the crowd, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I did go to that show." I like had no recollection of it
That's
whatsoever.
me with most shows, unfortunately. But I mean, then I'll see pictures of it like as proof, and I'm like, wow, that could be not me. I don't know. Like, I just don't have any memory of that whatsoever. Memory is a weird thing. Like
Yeah.
I said, I have the worst of the band mates, but what I do remember is pretty great.
um, my next question. I'm a huge movie guy, huge. What was the last movie you watched?
Well, I've been doing this fun movie night with my friend Hannah, like virtual movie night, and the last one that we watched was Moxie, which is actually punk related because it's like Amy Poehler directed, I guess, and it's got Bikini Kill in it. I mean, it's like makes me feel old because now I'm like the parent more than the kid. It's like a high school movie, and like the daughter gets like stumbles into her mom's like punk lair kind of in the house and like finds all her zines and gets into Bikini Kill and like transforms her school. It's actually kind of cute.
Oh, no
I think,
kidding.
yeah.
Where did
And also hits you in all the nostalgic places if you were into that stuff. But yeah.
yeah. Where can you watch that? Did you watch it on like Amazon Prime or
Oh,
Netflix?
it's Netflix. I think Netflix
Netflix.
released it. Yeah.
And it's Moxie because I haven't seen it. And anything that I haven't seen that anyone has a suggestion, because I've seen a ton of movies and I always love suggestions, especially if I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, you asked what the last one was, and that was it. But I can't. I mean, it's not like an awesome movie. It's not like it's flawed and stuff. It's more just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it. I mean, it's like, oh my God, there's Bikini Kill. Like, oh, these kids are getting. It's like there's something that like really hit me
yeah,
in the feels, I guess.
yeah,
But like, I can't say. I can't make a solid judgment that it's like the best,
yeah,
most
yeah. No.
incredible movie you're ever gonna
Oh
see.
no,
So
no, I wasn't.
yeah, I mean, it's still
It's
like a
got.
high school movie, but it's so cool to see like a whole new generation getting introduced to like Riot Girl. I mean, like I think that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like.
you should watch it. I mean, it's good. Just like don't. I'm not trying to set the bar super high here.
It's kind of like The Sound of Metal. I watched that and I had high bars on that, and then I was kind of it was kind of lackluster for me. I think
See, that's in my watch list, but I hadn't gotten around to it yet. So.
yeah, it was like so many people were pumping it up, and I don't know if I'm a harsh critic or not, because I'm not, because I like silly movies too. But not to say that was a silly movie, but it just didn't resonate with me. I think like the best thing that I saw, which was this is very minimal like thinking, but he had a Youth of Today like sweatshirt, and I
Yeah.
thought that was the coolest part of the whole movie. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was. It was just, and some parts were filmed at a club near which I go to up here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, called Sonia. So it was like it was interesting. I'm not saying it was horrible, but it wasn't like everybody was pumping it up. Oh, this is gonna be
Right.
blah blah blah. And I watched it and I was like, it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm actually not much of a movie person. Like, I'm the kind of person where people make some reference to the movie, and I'm the one that's like, what? I don't get it. I mean, I have the basics down, maybe, like, I'll catch a Star Wars reference, but, like, there are a lot that I won't catch. But that's part of what movie night is that, like, we're just, trying to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
I still need to see some. I mean, I'm the person that, like, you'll say something, I'll be like, I haven't seen that. And you'll be like, what do you mean you haven't seen, like, whatever. So I'm working on it, but
Yeah.
I'm warning you if you go down this line of questioning that I'm probably going to disappoint you.
This is a movie question also. I do love horror, but it's gotten stale to me. But I always ask your favorite horror movie of all time for you.
Well, it's funny. I'm like not. I've never been that into horror, but my partner is. So I've watched more of it, but it's taken me a while to come around to it. One of my closest friends, Sam, she's like, that's her thing. She blogs about it. She does commentaries for all these like horror movies, and like she's just long accepted that I'm not gonna follow along with her on that. But I think, what is the last one that I saw? Oh, well, I had never seen the Friday the 13th movies, so
Really?
I was catching up on those real quick, and I did. So now I've seen and I saw Nightmare on Elm Street. I was just trying to cover some classics, but then I've
Yeah.
also seen some like weird obscure shit that are like, fuck, what was that one movie? Martyrs.
Oh yes,
That one
the
kind of ruined my life a little bit. So
the original Martyrs, or they remade Martyrs also. So like I think the original was a foreign film, and
yeah, it was a foreign one that I saw.
yeah, Martyrs. Oh my God,
That's a
just
little bit soul crushing.
yeah. I mean, the torture alone, I was like, all right. I'm looking at the clock, being like, all right.
Yeah, I couldn't really handle it. I could appreciate some of like what they were going for, but like I have a low tolerance for gore, I guess, still. So I like horror is like a difficult one for me, but I've learned to appreciate more of it in recent times. I'm just not gonna know that much about it.
I mean, but what is your favorite one so far, though? Like the one that like you were like, all right, this is the best one that I've seen. Obviously, you had to go through a lot of cheese with the Friday the 13th, because I think the first three are good, and then the cheese starts happening. Like when you
Right.
get to Jason X and Jason Takes Manhattan, it's kind of
I
like,
did go there. I decided that was probably not something I needed to get under my belt before exploring other horror movies. But I'm like really bad at answering your questions because I can't decide on like favorite anything most of the time. And right now I'm just blanking on literally every movie I've ever seen. So
yeah, that's fine.
I'll like send you a message later and let you know.
I also was like a huge, and still I don't read as much comics as I used to. And before I was a lot like DC, Marvel all the time. now I read more independent comics, like Image and stuff like that. So I always ask, are you a DC person or are you a Marvel person? And you might not be either one. You might be like, hey, listen, I don't read comics and I don't watch superhero movies, which is fine.
Yeah, sadly, that is the case. I'm like really ignorant about that kind of thing. I just
You don't have to say sadly because I'm a super nerd.
well, I did I mean like I'm kind of late to the game on some stuff, so maybe I'll get into it eventually. I did just like finally start watching Star Trek, and that's been pretty cool. So if I can do that at this age for the first time, then I feel like, you know, maybe comics are next, and then I can embrace the full nerddom that I'm supposed to embrace later.
All right. Well said. Well said.
Here's my origin story, right? That's a big deal in comics.
My next question: if you've been listening to hip hop at all, what have you been listening to? And if you haven't, what, like, maybe not the newer stuff, what are some of your favorite hip hop artists that you're into? Or you might not be into hip hop. I'm huge into hip hop as well as hardcore, so I always ask this question.
I just am pretty. I'm not that into hip hop, but like I mean, I'll hear stuff that I like, but I definitely am like, you know, I like Wu-Tang Clan and stuff, like, which is a common answer for pretty much any kid that likes hardcore and has been asked about hip hop. But it was never, you know, I appreciate it and stuff, but I don't know that much about the whole scene, I guess.
Yeah. Now, did you ever go to hip hop shows or no?
No, which is really unfortunate because DC would have been like a fucking great place to go see that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I totally missed out on it.
And lastly, my last question: favorite 1905 song to play live for you?
I think Can't Change Everything was my favorite one to play. I think it was also like the one that a lot of people like to hear, and that, like, you know, feeding off that energy was really fun. But also it was something that like I really believed passionately, and every time I performed that song, it just felt like, I don't know, like I really clicked with it every single time somehow, even after like the 900th time of playing it. And so, yeah, I think that was really fun to play.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny too, because some of the videos that I watch, you see. Do you remember back in the day? You'd see the shakers that would they'd it
Yeah.
wouldn't be pushing and shaking. They'd be more like shaking and like freaking out.
I like those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like nowadays, I don't see too many shakers nowadays, and
That's true.
and I do miss that. There in that dark video, there's a taste of a shaker like right by Nick, and
Nice.
it's fun to watch because I miss it. I saw a band called Me and Him Call It Us in Vermont, and there was probably 10 shakers all around him, and it was amazing to watch. I love those guys. I wish and girls. I wish more people did that because
I mean,
it's
there's
fun
nothing
to watch.
cooler than watching people like react to your music like that. You know, I mean, maybe some of it. I mean, I don't know if it was all genuine across the board with all shakers, but you know, like there's something about like the energy of playing shows and seeing people responding to it. And I mean, especially when people like caught on to 1905 and were, I mean, singing along to our songs. Like, I even just thinking about that gives me chills. Like, there's nothing cooler than just like connecting with people in that way. And yeah, I mean, I still remember when it was first started happening and just being like, is this real? Like, what's happening? Is this a joke? Are we being pranked? I don't know.
Now, do you have everything that 1905 put out, like physically, that you guys had that you saved? Because a lot of people I talk to, they're like, I don't have half the stuff or any of the stuff. Did you save all that memorabilia?
I did. Yeah, I keep joking about like if it's when it's acceptable to wear your own band's t-shirt, you know, like how many years have to go by before that's okay. Because in like metal, it is acceptable to wear it like immediately while you're still in the band, but like that's not the case in punk, for instance. So, but yeah, no, I saved everything. I came really close to giving it away. If like somebody asks for something, of course, I'm just like, yeah, take it. What do I need it for? Like, you should have it. But I think I've managed to hold on to at least one of everything.
Nice. How many 1905 shirts do you have in your possession now?
Two.
I actually had the maroon 1905 shirt with the pocket. It had a pocket.
No shit, you had that?
Yeah.
How It's a very limited edition shirt you have there.
Yeah, of course I'm a bigger person now, so that youth large doesn't fit me anymore.
Yeah, maybe not.
And I ended up giving it away because
It happens.
it was a half shirt on me nowadays. So, but I did have that, and I loved that shirt for a long time. Why was that a limited thing?
Yeah, I mean, I barely remember. We had some weird shirts, and I mean, we did, we screened our own for some of it, and then we had it, done professionally, which is probably the smarter move. And I kept trying to get, I wanted to make sure to like have all different sizes available for people, but like then we would have weird leftovers at the end, because I like insisted that we'd have to have, the XXLs too, and like, but also the youth large, and like, why don't we have women's shirts and stuff like that? So yeah, I know that there's still merch somewhere, probably like in Nick's house somewhere, maybe, but I just sort of kept one of everything, I guess.
Yeah,
but I don't even have a shirt like that.
I was very surprised. And I was like, whoa, this shirt has a pocket. This is amazing. I've never bought a band shirt that had a pocket in the front, so it's very memorable for
right. Yeah, we're weird like that,
Now, is there anything that you want to plug before we go, like get ready for new Alms songs, or any bands, any bands that you've been listening to that somebody should be listening to, suggestion wise, or anything?
I'm really bad at the plugs. I mean, and I'm really bad at self promotion for sure. But I do really appreciate that you want to talk about stuff. It's really cool to be thought of after all this time, and yeah, it's been fun, like going down memory lane a little bit too, even though my memory lane's, got some potholes in it. But I mean, I guess, keep an eye out for all the stuff, but I'm not sure that like I can say that, since it sounds so different than other bands, like maybe everyone's gonna hate it. I don't know. I like it. I just do what I like.
Yeah, but the thing is, now that you say that, is I think a lot of people that are in this punk hardcore scene have a broad range of likes in, I mean, I love 80s new wave. I love, classic rock. I love hip hop. I think like this community as a whole really likes different kinds of music. So I feel like Alms is right in with, all that stuff. And I feel like if you like, say if you like Converge, you'll like Alms, you know what I mean? Unless you're closed-minded and you're like, I only like metalcore and that's it.
Right.
But I feel like, I think a lot of people would listen to it and really enjoy it.
Well, thanks. I mean, at a certain point, like I just have to do whatever feels right to me, and if other people like it, then that's awesome. And if they don't, then like I'm, gonna keep doing whatever it is I'm doing. But no, I like that it does fit into different things, different scenes or different places, because I'm in different scenes in different places, so it kind of works out.
Now, do you ever miss screaming in the microphone?
Actually, I really do. I was just talking about this recently. And I don't know I guess it was even pre-pandemic that I was thinking about it, but like I miss it so much that I've been like thinking lately, like maybe I should try to like proactively do that again someday. We'll see. Maybe I will.
Yeah. Now, would you ever juggle with two bands? Is that a thing where you were thinking of? Now that if anybody's listening to this, like interrupt, if you're in a heavy band with a lead singer that screams, please hit up Jess right now.
Yeah, it's like a Craigslist ad, like singer seeking band. Yeah, no, I think it would be really fun though. I do really miss it. It'll take a minute to kind of get my vocal cords back in shape, but yeah, there's something really really awesome about screaming really loud that you can't really get that feeling anywhere else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it gets out a lot of like, especially if you're not playing sports, or you're not somehow getting frustration and aggression out. Like, not that that's saying it's a release, but it makes you feel.
It is though. It totally is.
Well, I mean, for me it was definitely, because but it's good to do that, and I always loved it. I'm old and I'd love to scream again, but I feel like I couldn't do it now. I feel like I could be in like a piebald cover band now, but I couldn't scream again. I think my vocals just I don't think I could do it. But
hey man, I'm saying you never know unless you try.
I know. I'd love to try to see. It'd be the first like balding, gray-haired guy that's like.
Oh, definitely
Well,
not the first.
oh, actually, there's a lot. Now that I say that, I don't know. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this and talking
Yeah,
with me.
definitely.
It's been super, super fun. And I'll send you a bunch of links to those bands that you haven't heard of. I think you'll enjoy it. And please stay in touch with me. Anything that I can do for you, hit me up, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely, definitely. This has been really fun. Thanks.
All right. Well, hope you have a good night and stay safe. And
You too.
I'll talk to you soon.
That's good. Bye.
All right. Bye.